la idee la un business inteligent. Află cum poți atrage finanțarea potrivită. Împreună cu ADA, primul asistent virtual pentru programe de finanțare. BCR.
Salutare, dragilor! Bine ați venit la Banii în mișcare. Continuăm să vorbim despre sectorul de construcții din România. Avem un invitat internațional, așa că o să trecem în engleză. Our special guest today, we have Mr. Denis Selinas, the president of the Real Estate Investor Association in Romania. Welcome to Money in Motion, Denis.
Thanks for having me, Iancu.
Thank you for your time. You have a very valuable international expertise. I'm curious what are the trends that you see in the construction market in Romania nowadays?
Look, real estate has been challenged by the most recent macroeconomic trends, as most industries have, especially asset-heavy industries. So with the uncertainty that comes from very high inflation and what the central banks are doing in order to combat that, that has translated, of course, to much higher funding costs, regardless of the segment of real estate. And this needs to be dealt with. It's a new environment. It's something that the real estate industry hasn't experienced the last 10 years, as you know, with quantitative easing and very low interest rates, in some cases negative. A lot of projects made sense. Now that's become more challenging and it's changed.
And most likely we will not return back to the very low interest rate environment we had in the past decade. And on top of that, we have additional challenges with the permitting context framework in Bucharest especially, which is more and more unclear and lacking stability or predictability.
Exactly. This affects different segments of the real estate sector differently. Nevertheless, it's one of the factors that are restricting supply, the other two being higher funding costs and work from home, which we can touch upon a bit later in our discussion. And all this sort of has impacted the real estate fundamentals in a negative way.
Yeah, indeed. You said about work from home, because after COVID, I see this phenomenon, this trend in the corporate sector. It's difficult to cancel this advantage for the employees because of the labor market tensions. How do you see the trend, and how do you think this will affect the office space market on the long term?
Again, this is a structural change in the office market from the demand perspective, but it's also a function of what segment of the demand we're talking about. So, for example, BPOs have been affected the most because productivity is measurable when the employees are working from home. So the more measurable it is, the less space they need. But at the same time, you're giving up certain network effects or collaboration with your co-workers and so on and so on. So in certain segments, that's more pronounced, and that's where you see a higher rate of return back to the office. In other segments like BPO and IT, where people can work, let's say, more independently and measured in the sense of productivity, then that space, that effect of COVID and work from home is more pronounced.
I see that because I'm also acting in the corporate world, like as a manager, executive and consultant, and it's more and more challenging to measure productivity in some areas, and as well, when you have the people in the office, it's better to have debates, meetings and brainstorming. It's easier because in the online alternative, it's much more difficult to coordinate between multiple colleagues that are getting connected online. But I want to touch as well, because we have 1 minute in the end, the logistic park area, because you are also active in this segment as well. I saw the total demand in Romania is constantly increasing, right, in this segment?
Let's say the proportion of logistics in comparison to other countries in Romania is much lower. So let's say in comparison with Poland or other more Central European countries that also benefited from having strong neighbors. So for example, Poland has Germany next to it. A lot of manufacturing was outsourced to Poland, and that had a large effect. But Romania is very well positioned for growth in logistics. Nevertheless, it's somehow limited by infrastructure, and less infrastructure infrastructure improves and there's a lot of access to different parts of the country. So now, for example, in the Northeast, it doesn't have much access, hence not much growth in logistics. But once this is addressed, then there should be much more supply of logistics because the fundamentals are still quite strong. Much stronger than the other segments of real estate.
So upside potential very large, but we need infrastructure to enable this potential to accelerate to the level of demand. So again, we speak about highways infrastructure we really need for the development and catalyzing the development of the economy. Very interesting discussion, Denis. Selinas was at Money in Motion. Thank you and wish you all the best.
I appreciate your invitation and thanks for having me.
Welcome. Dragilor, acestea au fost episoadele despre piața de construcții în România. Țineți aproape, săptămâna viitoare revenim la finanțele personale și nu uitați, banii sunt întotdeauna în mișcare.
Ai urmărit Banii în mișcare, o emisiune sponsorizată de ADA, primul asistent virtual pentru programe de finanțare, BCR.